My name is Joseph Buckley, president of John Reid and Associates, and in this brief video presentation, I would like to address two questions. What is minimization slash maximization, and what is confession contamination? Minimization and maximization are terms that social psychologists apply to the interrogation process, suggesting that the way investigators get confessions is they minimize the punishment that the subject will receive if he just cooperates and confesses. In other words, they promise the subject leniency. For example, look, if you just tell me you did this, you're going to go home, you're going to sleep in your own bed tonight, you're not going to spend any time behind bars, nothing's going to happen. Or, look, if you tell me you did this, we'll make sure you get counseling and treatment, you're not going to get arrested, no one's going to put you in jail. On the other side of the coin, maximization refers to, according to the social psychologists, investigators who threaten the subject with physical harm or inevitable consequences if they don't cooperate. In other words, if you don't tell me you did this, I'm going to make sure you never see your wife or kids again. If you don't tell me you did this thing, I'm going to make sure you fry in the electric chair. The problem with this description from social psychologists, and some defense attorneys as an example, is that we teach specifically not to do these behaviors, not to threaten harm or inevitable consequences, and not to promise leniency. For decades, the courts have told investigators that promises of leniency and threats of physical harm or inevitable consequences could jeopardize the admissibility of confessions. Going back almost 60 years to 1962, in the first edition of their book, Criminal Interrogation and Confessions, John Reid and Fred Emble pointed out that investigators should not promise leniency or threaten harm to subjects. There are two types of acceptable minimization that can occur during the interrogation: minimizing the moral seriousness of the behavior and minimizing the psychological consequences. The third type of minimization, minimizing the legal consequences, we teach never to do. And in fact, the American Psychological Association has published that the interrogation process should allow for moral and psychological minimization but prohibit legal minimization, which we concur with. The second question I would like to address in this brief program is, what is confession contamination? When you look at false confession cases, you'll notice in the confessions from these individuals, who oftentimes were found innocent through DNA exoneration, that their confessions contain details that only the guilty person could know. So the question becomes, how did they get there? Research indicates this is referred to as the contamination error, and by that they mean that investigators reveal to the subject details about the crime during the course of their questioning of those individuals. So here's the problem. When somebody confesses and they give us the details of the crime, how do we know whether they had independent knowledge of those details or whether or not they are merely repeating what they were told by the investigators? We have been teaching for over 50 years that investigators should conceal some details about the crime so they can use that information to corroborate the authenticity of a confession. The best type of corroboration is to develop details about the crime that only the subject could know, such as the location of the murder weapon or the bloody clothes, where the stolen jewelry was fenced, perhaps who we talked to about having committed the crime, etc. At the outset of any investigation, we recommend investigators get together and designate what is going to be their hold-back information. What details about the crime are they going to hold back and not reveal to the media or to any subject they talk to, so that they can use those details to corroborate the authenticity of a confession? And we recommend that these hold-back items be documented. For additional information on these two concepts, minimization slash maximization and the contamination error, go to our website at reid.com, and on the What's New page, we have an article linked to that you can access called Clarification of Misrepresentations of Law Enforcement Interrogation Techniques, where you will find a more detailed discussion of these issues, as well as in our book, Criminal Interrogation and Confession. Thank you very much for taking a few minutes to view this presentation.